A bit of inception for today's comment deep dive video, as the comment that I'm replying to comes from a previous comment deep dive, this video here, and I'm just going to read you this exchange. We're going to be mainly focusing on the second comment from this individual. So they start by saying, demons don't pull the strings to one single side. Their objective is division. Like, bruh, this one was easy to realize. To which I said, almost as easy to realize as they are not even real. And then this is the comment that we're going to be covering. They said, yet you believe that there are life forms outside Earth, because that's necessary for your religion. We can't be the only thing in the universe. That would be too convenient and would point to intelligent design. The point being, whether you call them demons or aliens, it's just a cultural difference. The phenomenon behind is very real and has been documented by every civilization ever. So there are three main parts of this that I want to get to. That second part relates, if you can believe it, to politics today and our vice president. So stay tuned for this. But we're going to start with the first part of the claim here, that I need to believe aliens exist because it's some get out of jail free card for otherwise having to admit intelligent design and thus proving, I guess, the Christian God. There are so many leaps of logic here that it becomes almost too silly to respond to, but we're going to give it a go anyways. I'm also not going to address that atheism is clearly not a religion. You can see this video here for that. So let's break this down. I don't even know if I would say that I believe in aliens. I think aliens are probable simply based off the sheer size of the universe, but I don't need them to be real. And I don't believe in them the same way that Christians believe in demons. My atheism, all atheism, is a lack of belief in a God. And that lack of belief stands on its own, regardless if aliens exist or not. But I am glad to hear you admit that the potential for life on other planets is disastrous to a lot of Christian theology, which is probably why you have to claim, and why our vice president is claiming, that aliens, these things that have possibly appeared in all of these stories, all the Area 51, who knows what, it's probably just demons, because that fits the worldview you so desperately need to protect. You are projecting in this comment, and it is very, very obvious. But look at what you confused here just in this first part of the comment. You confused what might be possible with what must be required. You confused me leaning on probability with ideology, again, because this is your basis, not mine. And you're treating uniqueness as evidence of design, which is also flawed. Rare does not equal designed, even though it doesn't help my point. If aliens did exist, you still could make a intelligent design argument. Just so we can broaden up your own mind here. Aliens don't automatically kill your God, though they introduce a lot of problems. But that's the other thing. You've confused intelligent design as an argument for a creator with the Christian God. Those two things are also not linked. Even if you could prove a creator, even if intelligent design was a sound argument, which it is not, here you go, then you'd still have to go from a God to your specific God, and that gets even worse for you. Maybe one thing that can help you is understanding that not knowing is not a problem for me. I don't have to make claims about things I can't prove just to validate a position that I may or may not hold. That's Christianity. And I think that's all I want to say for the first part of this comment. It was just you so clearly telling us how you really feel. Again, pure projection. But let's move on to the second part here. This one is really interesting. I'm going to reread it here. The point being, whether you call them demons or aliens is just a cultural difference. No, it's not. A cultural difference is, do you take your shoes off before you enter someone's house? The difference between other life organically happening on a distant planet versus a particular mythology or religion's bad guys actually existing is a night and day difference. It's not a cultural difference, it is a category difference. You trying to make these interchangeable labels is ridiculous. But again, we know why you want to do this. But before we get to those motives and before we get to the implications of that, I want to explain this further, why the distinction matters. If we are open to the possibility of aliens, then we're still within the natural world. That may be hard for you to conceive of, but that is our position. We can talk about what it is, where it came from, what data do we have, can it be tested? If you call something a demon, you import an entire religious idea behind it or mythological idea behind it. Now we're talking about evil spirits, scriptural authority, possession. That affects how we treat mental health, spiritual deception, exorcisms, and cosmic warfare. If you don't see the difference in these two categories, you're truly being disingenuous. So let's do this. Let me show you this clip. Many of you have probably seen it. I was going to make it its own episode, but I think it fits in too nicely here, and I don't want to drag it out. So watch this, and then we'll talk.
Trust me, I'm obsessed with this. I've already had a couple of times where I'm like, all right, I'm going to Area 51. We're going out to New Mexico. We're going to sort of get to the bottom of this. And then the timing of the trip just didn't work out. But trust me, anybody who's curious about this, I'm more curious than anybody, and I've got 3 years of the very, very tippy top of the classification. I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
All right. Well, we're waiting for it. We saw aliens.gov.
You know me.
We saw aliens.gov.
I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway, but that's a longer discussion.
So you think they're demons?
Well, look, I think that celestial beings who fly around, who do weird things to people, I think that the desire to describe everything celestial, everything is otherworldly, to describe it as aliens. I mean, every great world religion, including Christianity, the one that I believe in, has understood that there are weird things out there, and there are things that are very difficult to explain. And I naturally go, when I hear about sort of extra natural phenomenon, that's where I go to, is the Christian understanding that, you know, there's a lot of good out there, but there's also some evil out there. And I think that one of the devil's great tricks is to convince people we never existed.
How very concerning that this is what our number 2 in charge is focused on, what he wants to get to the bottom of, not helping Americans, not doing the job that he was elected for, just pandering to his base for his own personal gain at an expense, and not just the expense of him not doing his normal job, but again, the implications that happen when one conflates these two things together. I'm going to give you 4 problems with this. Again, I don't think I ever, in my wildest imagination, even knowing how much religion plays a part in politics and how much politicians need to pander to the religious base as they still make up a majority of America, I didn't think that a leader so high up would ever sit down in an interview and frame unexplained aerial phenomenon, which sure, we can say that, as demons. It's like we're going back to the Dark Ages. So the first bad thing that happens from this is it completely poisons inquiry. Once you slap a supernatural label on something, you stop investigating it properly. You stop being able to investigate it properly. By the way, there's also a difference between like the acceptance that based off probability somewhere in the universe, other life probably exists, and the more conspiratorial, the government is hiding aliens in Area 51, and there's all these UFO sightings that definitely mean aliens. That's almost on the same level as religious belief. I think aliens are interesting. When we don't have an answer for something that looks supernatural, I think aliens are a better explanation than demons. But I'm also fine just saying, well, I don't know. There's lots of things we didn't know about that science later explained totally naturally without needing to go to demons or aliens. And again, aliens would be a natural explanation. Regardless, if these things are actual mysteries, I would want to learn about them in the best way possible, and immediately labeling them as the evil spirit from your preferred religion gets in the way of that so obviously. The second problem I have here is that it rewards superstition at the expense of evidence, by the way. Regardless of your belief, why would you not want to know the truth? Or is it just more comforting to you, even though we're talking about demons, if the answer were demons, because then to you, you think that proves your God is true. And so again, belief in your God, aka superstition, takes precedence over evidence. This is already a horrible pattern across humanity, and it's only made worse when we jump to these kinds of conclusions. The next issue I have is it further reduces the separation of church and state. Despite what our administration has been doing, the purpose of our governmental leadership is supposed to be representing all people. It should be clear to see, even for a Christian. All right, let's just pretend you absolutely believe in God and that these are demons. Do you want whoever is in charge to frame any phenomenon through their personal belief system? How would you feel if this was a Hindu and you're a Christian and they're representing you as leadership in your country and they're saying, oh no, it's not aliens, this is actually Ravana, the 10-headed Hindu demon king? Would you feel like they have your best interest at heart if they're going down trying to prove their own theology with taxpayer resources? Clearly, you wouldn't want that. Why is it so hard for believers to not get that it's bad when the shoe's on the other foot, so maybe we should just keep the separation? By the way, shout out to Ravana if you have not been following Sharing Fire. It was one of my most recent videos. It's from a series I'm doing over there called Myths That Mirror Us, where we can learn about a particular concept that affects humanity from a mythology. In that case, it is about ego. While I have you here on the self-promotion, I want to say two things and we'll get right back to this. One, if mythology or philosophy or psychology or history or art interest you, please click the description down below and subscribe to Sharing Fire. If it does not interest you, please don't. I have made a mistake. I have promoted Sharing Fire on this channel a lot, and a lot of you have come over, and that's wonderful. Thank you for showing your support. But I think for many of you, that's all it was, and you have no intention of watching the video. And so when I post on Sharing Fire, it goes out to all of my subscribers, and many of you have no interest and are not clicking. Again, that's totally fine, except that it is killing my videos before they have a chance to do anything. So honestly, and no problem, I don't care if I lose 7,000 subscribers today. If you are not watching those videos, would you go and unsubscribe? And if you are watching them, would you turn on notifications and be sure to click when they come out? The second bit of self-promotion I have is I now have channel memberships for no other reason that I know not everyone is going to go over to Patreon, but many of you have expressed still wanting to support the channel. This just makes it a one-click button. My philosophy on you giving toward the channel is always, I'm going to try my best to put out 3 very solid videos a week. I can't promise a lot of other things. I just don't have the time. But if you want to support that, there's 3 levels in which you can do so through the memberships. You'll still be represented on the thank you page or in the description of the video, depending on your level of giving. And here on YouTube, you get badges and some fun personal emojis that you can use. I don't ever want to put anything behind a paywall though. So that's it, I'm done. Let's get back to the video. The other thing that I think that this particular one is doing, but in general, is it misdirects public attention. We have a whole lot of things we should be worrying about instead. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. In general, government is supposed to serve a purpose. Healthcare, infrastructure, inflation, war, these things matter. These things are real and they are happening. Our VP saying it's a priority for him to investigate and get to the bottom of this demon versus alien thing is beyond concerning. And this all backs up to the comment, of course, because he's saying it doesn't really matter, it's just a cultural difference. It does matter, and it matters for this exact reason. Let's move on to the third and final part of this comment. I will reread it. The phenomena behind is very real and has been documented by every civilization ever. Despite how bad the first 2 parts of this comment were, this is actually, I think, the worst, the sloppiest one, because it hides 3 claims behind one vague blob. People throughout history have reported strange experiences, true, and or made up stories to try to fill the gaps in their understandings, also true. But then you try to leap to all those experiences referring to the same phenomenon, the one you want to be true, of demons. This is not true. That's what the entire last video was about. And then the biggest leap that you're trying to toss into all of that is that therefore those phenomenon are objectively real in the way that believers describe it. Absolutely not. This is an error in logic. Lots of cultures, in fact, almost all cultures, have talked about dragons, sacred healings, astrology, and a ton of other supernatural things, claims that you would not accept as a Christian. Do they just become true because of the overwhelming evidence of how many cultures for how long in time have all purported to claim this? Of course not. In a few years, we're going to have more people that believe in Islam than Christianity. Will that all of a sudden make Islam true and Christianity false just because of this fallacious appeal to majority? No, you would not accept that. But that is exactly the same kind of illogic you are using here. Universal reportings tell you that something is going on, that something is important about human cognition and culture. In fact, that is the second kind of mythology video I make on Sharing Fire, shared stories, where we do comparative mythology and look at something that crops up across time and culture, but apply it to what it means to the human condition, not what it definitely proves about the phenomenon it's talking about. If you really want to get into the weeds about what is universal, it's things like pattern recognition, agency detection, fear of the unknown, myth-making, oral tradition, misperceptions, sleep paralysis, grief experiences, social contagion, and storytelling, all of which way better explain why we have these shared stories across time and space. The cross-cultural recurrence of strange events and thus supernatural claims is exactly what you would expect from human minds, especially when they're trying to interpret all of these ambiguous events. And again, we have answered many of these things already. The fact that some mystery is still there doesn't mean that your God is all of a sudden true. Ignorance is not evidence for your favorite mythology. Unexplained does not equal supernatural. A probability estimate does not equal a religion, and demons are not a scientific category. The sky being mysterious doesn't make your theology true. So that's it. That's all I have to say for today's video. I hope that I got my point across here. I am so sick and tired of the real consequences in this world because of the superstitious religions that the masses still hold. I am embarrassed to be in a country where this is the topic of conversation in a serious matter. And I am fearful for the continued productiveness of this country when leaders who would think and act like this are at the helm. So this particular comment struck a bigger chord in lieu of what is currently going on politically. But the points all remain even outside of the JD Vance stuff. So thank you for being here. Either subscribe or unsubscribe from Sharing Fire based on this conversation. Feel free to join the channel memberships if you have not, or of course the Patreon is still a wonderful way to support the channel. I'll see you Sunday with a new video, and until then, keep thinking. Thank you to my top tiers of support: my Iconoclast, Ann, Boris, Chris, Greysteel, Gnarlywill, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn. My Humanist heroes: Chris, Craig, James, Jarrod, Kristi. My Atheist advocates: Aquitar, Caleb, Dakota, Dan, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Jeremy, Jugs, Julie, Malcom, Paul, Rege, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you enjoy Mindshift, would you consider joining these fine people? Thanks, and have a great day.